y elija español. Para escuchar solo el audio en español, por favor busque y cambie la configuración para silenciar el audio original. Básicamente esta parte va a decir que el audio original está mudado. En inglés se dice Mute Original Audio. Gracias y nos alegra brindarles esta oportunidad.
All right, item 2.0, changes to the agenda. We're going to be adding to our executive session this evening. We are already planning to meet, but we will also meet in accordance with ORS 192.6602A in consideration of the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. The board tonight will have a conversation about next steps when it comes to our intended search, since we received word this week that TRIP has decided to move on at the end of the year. So just wanted to make sure everyone knows that we are still figuring it all out, but we will come forward to the community with a plan. We'll be soliciting participation, and we'll figure it out as we go. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, item 3.0, public forum and announcements. 3.1, public comments. Due to the online meeting format, we request that public comments be submitted via email to the board secretary by 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Statements should be brief and should not reflect adversely on the background, character, or motives of any individual. Commenters wishing to read during the meeting will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and, depending on the volume of comments, an overall time limit may be set. Board members will not respond directly to public comments, as this is our time to listen. Dear School Board and Superintendent, our son is a fifth grader at Trost Elementary and is finally getting to attend school next week. We thank you for that. However, only 3 hours a day, 2 days a week is not acceptable and is a disservice to our children that want to be in school. Clackamas County was moved down to moderate risk effective February 26th. Current metrics have been trending down and currently in the yellow, on-site and hybrid. It is now time to put our children back in school for the entire day, not just 3 hours per day, 2 days a week. Please get a plan together immediately for them to attend school the entire day and more than 2 days a week. Look around at other districts are doing this, such as Malala, Roseburg, Redmond, Medford, and Woodburn, to name a few. As of now, we are one of the districts with the least number of hours for our children to be in school, which is unacceptable. Last but not least, please open the fields so our children can play sports. They need the physical activity along with social interaction with other children. Please do not let our children suffer any longer. It is time to put them first. Thank you, Douglas and Doreen, I hope I get that right, Kaiser. And next up is Kathleen, right?
Janet.
Yeah. Hold on.
And Shireen actually asked to read her. So,
Oh,
just so you know.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Let me use the paper. Am I supposed to read this one?
Janet, yes.
Okay. Just triple checking. Members of the board of directors, in past meetings, I have heard some board members say that they represent their community, and that is my community. As a Latina, until now, I have not heard that they represent me. When you speak of the community, it would be good to specify which community you refer to, because I have not heard from you. So how do you represent me? There are 30% Latino students, and I don't see that their opinions encompass Latinos' concerns. On the district website, we find board priority. The mission says to promote academic and personal growth for all students through effective teaching, leadership, and resource management to develop lifelong learners who will strengthen our community and our world. How do board members represent the Latino community and its students based on the mission of the district? Enhance positive school-community relations. The district will develop meaningful relationships and opportunities for participation and engagement among students, families, and community members. Have board members and district staff done anything to communicate with us, considering our culture? In the district's welcome letter, it says, we take our responsibility to provide the best educational experiences for your students very seriously. I want you to know that I am here to serve our students, their families, our staff, and our community. I want your feedback, and I hope you share your thoughts with me on how we can improve. Where is this, quote, this responsibility, end quote, to keep our children with the best educational experiences if you want to return to classes in person when the contagion is not controlled? This decision forces us to send our children to a place where we are not sure that you will protect them. I do not agree to send my daughter to school in person until there is zero contagion. The district is committed to having adequate sanitary measures for the well-being of our children. Another thing that I have noticed is that you do not allow to read specific comments or petitions. You have not been allowed to read it because it does not meet certain criteria. I remember when comments were made when the meetings were in person, the comment or petitions was not requested in advance so that we later decided to authorize it or not. Finally, we would like to know which is the correct channel for us to be heard. Thank you for your time and your service to the Canby community. Janet Diaz. Might be that fast. Okay. Superintendent Goodall and Canby School Board. I just finished reading the article in the Canby Herald, Social Media Activity, Politics Creep into Canby School Board Business. I am dismayed that Superintendent Goodall is resigning this year in connection with School Board member Stephanie Carlson's comment to the social media post. I realize this article just touches the surface and there's likely a backstory I don't understand. I also realize this is likely the straw that broke the camel's back for Superintendent Goodall because of all the chaos he has had to deal with in the last year because of the pandemic and how it has affected our school system. What kind of message does the lack of resolution of this problem send to Canby school kids? As a country, we are in the midst of divisiveness that is infiltrating our entire social fabric. It spills out into our Canby community. It's happening in Canby City Council as well, but at least the City Council is utilizing the service of a mediator to help resolve their issue. Even if Superintendent Goodall is set on his resignation, wouldn't it be better to address this school district problem so it doesn't persist with the next administrator? It's hard for me to imagine why Stephanie Carlson would not make a public statement to take responsibility for her post as opposed to filing a formal complaint against Superintendent Goodall. If the school board cannot resolve this issue internally, my suggestion is to line up a mediator to help resolve the issue so the next superintendent doesn't have the same problem. I have donated thousands of dollars personally and through the Gorski Foundation for special projects at 91 schools, Canby High School, and to Canby School District for Canby High College Scholarships for the last 19 years. I do not support the way the Canby School Board is dealing with this. Thank you for listening. Jennifer Gorski. So this one is now Kathleen, and she is going to read her own comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. This is a little new and new again and weird again. So sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Members of the Canby School Board, I want to express the concern I felt when I heard board members speak of representing, quote, the constituents that elected them. When one serves on a school board, they will clearly put forth their opinions. But school board races are nonpartisan for a reason. Everyone associated with the school district must recognize that all the children and families in this district are their constituents. Obviously, we can't make everyone happy all the time, but the question all board members should always ask themselves is, how can we meet the needs of the most people possible? That would include people whose needs may be different than your own and those of people you know. No one on this board, other than those who have run unopposed, was elected by a vast majority of the voters in this district. Some were not even elected by a majority, but rather were elected by a plurality. But either in any which way, board members need to listen to and advocate for all community members and not advocate for only those with whom they agree or with whom they have personal connections. If board members do that, compromise is going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to reach, and underrepresented and marginalized groups of constituents will continue to be underrepresented and marginalized. Thank you all for your time and service.
All right. The next comment is from Janet Diaz. Any board member of the district does not represent me because up to today, they have ignored my concerns and comments. Thanks, Janet Diaz. And then Maria Tellez wanted to read hers. Is that right, Candy?
Yeah, I think that last comment was from Keila Diaz or Kyla. I'm not sure how to say her name, but she actually did want to read that one statement.
We are not doing well today.
I know. It's okay.
So sorry.
Forgive us.
My apologies.
We are definitely trying.
And then, yes, Maria is next.
Is Maria reading first?
Maria, you're now on and can talk now if you're able.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Go ahead. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, board members. Tonight I'm here to tell you that I feel that you have not been listening to the opinion of or concerns of our Latino community. An example of this is the letter that was presented at a previous meeting, and being that there were more than 80 parents who signed this letter was taken to be one person expressing opposition back to school. I know that our Latino community is not as informed as how or what the board members are for, but that's not why we should be heard. We shouldn't be heard. We ask for some kind of workshop be offered to us in some way where it is explained to us how board members are chosen, regulations to be able to give a comment in which it's appropriate and that are listened to, and if each member represents someone or something, because I have heard from one of the members say that he or she represents their community. If so, I would like to know who are those people whom they claim to represent. I am an active mother in the school district, which at this time, I do not really know if I'm invited to participate in the different committees because they really care about my opinion, or if it's simply so that the district has some kind of way to demonstrate that they include the Latinos to participate. Now that we have been given the option whether or not to send our children back to school, how do you plan to support those of us who decided not to send our children? I know that there are programs that can be offered additional help for students who participate in these programs. To conclude, I just want to tell you that our community is in the best position to work with the district, and that all we ask for is that we be heard, that our opinions be taken into account. Because if we are all here, it's because we care about the education of all the students in the Canby School District. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Molly Watson. Dear Canby School Board, to say that I am completely disappointed in the Canby School Board and district would be a complete understatement. You are failing our kids. Our kids deserve better. They deserve for the adults that were elected for their schools to fight for them, and that is not happening. As the rest of the country's kids are back in school full time, here we are only able to send our kids 2 days a week for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Due to fear, not science. Our teachers fought to get the vaccine before even the most vulnerable affected by COVID-19 are elderly, before even our frontline workers like grocery store clerks, plumbers, electricians, gas attendants, bankers, and now they are still fighting to avoid going back into our schools with our precious kids. As a parent to a 9-year-old fourth grader, I never thought I would even have to think about depression in my child, but now it's our reality. She is falling more and more behind in school. Why are you not fighting for our kids? Why is our kids' needs not put above our teachers' union's demands? They are employees, not bosses. The teachers that are not wanting to come back can either do the distance learning for the families who don't want their kids in the buildings or replace them. We are not only failing our kids' academic needs, but social, emotional, behavioral needs, and much more. Stand your ground and do what is in the best interest of our children and get them back into our school buildings. I may not be able to teach my daughter the Common Core math, but I can teach her the old way of how to do math. But what I can't give her is the interaction with her peers that is required for her emotional and social needs. Just right next to our little community is Malala. They have their younger kids going to school 4 full days and the older ones 2 full days. So please don't tell me we can't. Stop tiptoeing around our teachers' union and do what's right for our children, whose only voice is us. Molly and Gordon Wasson. The next comment, I am concerned with the decision to cancel the board meeting due to the power outages ice storm, but still require staff to travel to buildings to work if they were without power internet. Many students who were without power internet as well and were unable to attend class during those days. I do not feel that this decision was equitable to staff or students. If the board felt it was unsafe and or not possible to hold their meeting due to outages, the same courtesy should have been extended to staff and students. Thank you. Whitney Bonner, 3rd grade teacher. And then Yolanda Sanchez.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Ok. Voy a leer mi carta en español y creo que alguien la va a traducir en inglés. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Yolanda Sánchez. Soy miembros de la mesa directiva. Estamos hoy para tratar ciertas cosas que hemos escuchado en las reuniones pasadas. Hemos escuchado decir algunos miembros de la mesa directiva que ellos representan la comunidad y a los que votaron por ellos. Nosotros como comunidad latina hasta este momento no hemos escuchado que nos incluyan. Sería algo importante que sean más concisos en este punto. En el distrito escolar de Canby, el 30% de los estudiantes son latinos y hasta ahora no creemos ser incluidos en las opiniones ni han resuelto nuestras preocupaciones. No se escucha esa equidad, igualdad y justicia en sus opiniones. Por el contrario, hemos escuchado mucho de política y quejas que hasta ahora no han tenido respuesta alguna. Y creemos que probablemente hasta que se han violado algunos protocolos. Nuestra pregunta es, ¿cómo los miembros de la mesa directiva representan a la comunidad latina según su protocolo y misión de la declaración del distrito? ¿Acaso los miembros de la mesa directiva han creado algún vínculo para estar en comunicación con la comunidad, que también incluye la comunidad latina? Otro punto que queremos tratar es la situación del nuevo proceso, el cual cambió a partir de que fuimos encerrados por el COVID-19. Acerca de los comentarios, las peticiones y cartas enviadas. Se han censurado porque según ustedes no cumplen con los criterios del distrito, pero recuerdo que varios padres asistimos en persona a las juntas del distrito y nunca escuché que fuéramos silenciados o restringidos como ahora. Los comentarios no se enviaban antes para que se decidiera si lo aprueban o no. Siempre hubo respeto como lo hay hasta ahora, o eso creemos. Por último, somos un grupo de padres latinos preocupados por las familias que no queremos enviar a nuestros hijos a la escuela hasta saber que todo sea 100% seguro para todos, no solo para los maestros. Esta es la segunda vez que hacemos esta petición y sentimos que estamos siendo ignorados. Tal vez por ser minoría. La primera carta contenía 87 firmas, lo cual fue firmada por algunos padres en tan solo un día. En la presente están las firmas de los padres y madres de la familia que apoyamos esta carta y que son parte de la comunidad de Canby, el cual ustedes como distrito representan. ¿Qué más podemos hacer o pedir para ser escuchados? Lo que dicen en el sitio del distrito acerca de servir y tomar con responsabilidad la educación de nuestros hijos y apoyar a las familias, al personal y a la comunidad es lo que realmente queremos. Que sea cumplido y que realmente se comprometan a cumplir esas metas de salud y nos dejen formar parte de este distrito del cual todos somos una comunidad. Y tomen esta crítica positiva como algo para que juntos estemos en acuerdo común. Gracias por su tiempo y su esfuerzo por un mejor futuro educativo de nuestros hijos.
Thank you. We have one more comment. I think that's the end of what you had, correct? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yolanda also provided her comment in English, so I'll go ahead and read that for her as well. Members of the Canby School Board, we are here today to address certain things that we have heard in past meetings. We have heard some members of the board say that they represent the community and the community who voted for them. As a Latino community, right up until this moment, we have not heard that this includes us. It would be important for you to be more precise at this point. In the Canby School District, 30% of the students are Latino, and up until now, we don't believe we have been included in your opinions. nor have you resolved our concerns. This doesn't sound like equity, equality, and justice to us. On the contrary, we have heard a lot of politics and complaints that so far have not received any response, and we believe that probably some protocols have been violated. The question we have is, how do members of the school board represent the Latino community according to your protocols and the declaration of the mission of the district? Maybe the members of the school board have created a relationship and a way to be in communication with the community, but has that communication and relationship included the Latino community? Another point that we'd like also to address is the situation with the new process, which changed when we began locked up by COVID-19. Regarding the comments, requests, petitions, and letters sent, they have been censored because according to you, they do not meet the criteria of the district. But I remember when a number of us as parents came to meetings in person, and I never felt we were being silenced and restricted like now. We did not have to send in comments before the meetings for you to decide if they would be approved or not. We believe we always were and continue to be respectful in our comments. Oh, so we think. Finally, we are a group of Latino parents concerned about families who would not want to send our children to school until we know that everything is 100% safe for everyone, not just for the teachers. This is the second time that we have made a request, and we feel like we are being ignored, maybe because we are a minority. The first letter we sent contained 87 signatures, which were collected in one day. We're only some of the parents who feel this way. Here are the signatures of the parents who support this letter and who are part of the Canby community, which you as a district represent. What more can we do to be heard? What you say on the district website talks about serving and taking responsibility for educating our students and supporting families, staff, employees, in the community. We want to know where this responsibility begins if you want to return to in-person classes, when you do not give us any certainty about our health and protection, that everything will be fine and there won't be any contagion among our families. Is it what we really want to see, that it is fulfilled and that all you really commit to meeting those health and sanitation goals, and let us be part of this district of which we are all a community, and that you take this as positive feedback, as something helps us come together and have a common agreement. Thank you for your time and effort towards a better educational future for our children. And this is included with 93 signatures from members of the community.
Thanks, Sarah. We have one more comment, and I believe Emanuel wants to read his own. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Emanuel Hemsi. I live in Canby, have two sons who go to Canby High School and teach dual language immersion science at Baker Prairie Middle School. I am writing to address the issue of returning to in-person school. I am aware that this is a complex issue, and this letter is not to advocate for a particular plan, but rather to ask the school board and our superintendent to put equity at the forefront of the discussion, as the best way to return to in-person school continues to evolve. To me, equity in this case means that we are listening to and advocating for not just the families and students that have the most access to the board members, but for the families and students who are often not heard. At the board meeting on January 21st, there was a public comment read that was signed Padres Latinos, or Latino parents, which included 81 signatures, stating their concerns about returning to in-person school. Part of the letter read, "Aprender en casa para nuestros hijos es difícil, pero sería más difícil perderlos para siempre o para perder un miembro de la familia porque nos trajeron el virus a casa. Learning at home for our children is difficult, but it would be harder to lose them forever or for them to lose a family member because they brought the virus home to us." According to Salud America statistics taken from the Oregon Health Authority, Oregon is 13% Latino, but on February 10th, they made up 26.5% of COVID-19 cases. According to the CDC, Hispanics and Latino persons are 1.3 times more likely to contract COVID, 3.2 times more likely to be hospitalized from COVID, and 2.3 times more likely to die from COVID than white non-Hispanic persons. In listening to the board meeting on February 4th, I heard multiple statements from school board members about speeding up the timeline to return to in-person learning. I heard one member state that we're all on the same page when we're speaking for children that want and need to get back to school, and everyone here tonight says they want to get our kids back to school. While I believe that it is true that we all want to get back to in-person schooling when we feel safe to do so, it is not true that everyone is ready to return now. In our elementary schools, 20 to 40% of families are choosing not to have their students return to in-person school, and these families are disproportionately our Latinx families and students. I did not hear any board member respond directly to the concerns of the 81 Latinx families that stated they were worried about losing loved ones or about having to be out of work. I did not hear any discussion about the fact that COVID disproportionately affects Latinx families. I did not hear any board members advocate to make sure that the families and students that choose to stay in comprehensive distance learning for the rest of the year have just as robust a schedule as was advocated for the students that return to in-person school. I did not hear any board members advocating for the specific needs of our Latinx families and students. When you are speaking for our community, please make sure you are taking into account our Latinx families and students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is the end of our public comments. So item 4.0, consent agenda. 4.1, minutes, and 4.2, personnel changes. Someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. It has been. Oh, fine.
Oh, sorry. In the event that, we had a staff member that was out, because we knew that, again, it's going to be really difficult to find substitutes. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to add to that at all? It's about floater teachers, elementary.
I could not hear Tom, what Tom's question was.
He's asking the question, can you explain a little bit more about the elementary floater teachers?
Yes, so we have hired at most elementaries a floater teacher. That is somebody who then can step in for a last minute absence, or if somebody during the day needs to leave and we don't have a sub, they can step in. Other schools have long-term subs instead of a substitute floater. So it's just a backup because we have a low number of substitutes that are able to work and that have signed up to work. So this is to ensure consistency. And then if for some reason there's not an absence, they will get assigned to an existing absence. So the teachers are putting in the system those absences. And then if they don't get filled, then the floater gets put in there.
So they're in our schools every day? The
Yes.
floaters are.
Tuesday through Friday.
And are they assigned to a school specific?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're hired at each school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kathy. It's good to turn on your microphone. Just when I got the hang of doing it remotely. Stephanie, I think you can unmute yourself if you have something to say. I can't see your hand like I normally would, so I just wanted to make sure that if you have anything to add, make sure that you have a chance. Okay, hearing none. Kamala, will you please call the roll?
Stephanie?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 5.0, information, discussion, action items. And so tonight we are going to do our best to have our executive session start at about 8:30. We're trying to we have other people coming into the conversation. So I'm hoping that, if we need to carry over some of the items on the agenda, we can. But if our presenters can all, try to stick to the time allotted, that would be much appreciated. Item 5.1, return to school planning update. Tripp and Larry.
Thank you, Board Chair Dilks. It was an exciting week. We're really pleased that we are now going into our third day of hybrid in-person learning for our youngest learners, K through 3. On Tuesday, we began welcoming back those students who chose hybrid learning into our schools. And, I think it's important to note again that we have provided choices for parents. So what we're going to show tonight is just some of the highlights of one choice, and that's our in-person hybrid. Autumn Foster, our communications manager, coordinator was able to put together a really terrific video that captured some of that excitement. So let's take a look at that.
Right inside the desk. Yeah, you get a desk this year instead of a table. Yeah, so what am I gonna hear you doing? I'm gonna hear you reading, right? Ones you have in your bag.
What is everyone? We are having some technical issues right now. I think we're going to move on to the next slide.
That's okay. Let's just go to the next. Yep. I can tell you that I'm sure Autumn will put this on our website so people can see it. Sorry about the technical glitch there. If we can go to the slide, it says who opted into hybrid. I believe it's the next one, Bret.
And Tripp, we do have the slides in our packet, so if you want to
I think it's important. I can certainly move forward, but Bret, do you think we'll get those up? Okay. Well, I'll start it off because I think a lot of it's pretty explanatory, but it was really, again, great to see our kids back on Tuesday. You could see the smiles right through the masks, even those face coverings. You couldn't stop that. This slide that we have up in front right now is just a look at the number of kids who opted into hybrid model by grade level. So this is the district level data across our schools. So our kindergarten, fourth, and sixth grade students had the highest opt-in rates, and those are shown in blue. At 60.5% for kindergarten, 65.1% for grade 4, and 66.8% for our sixth graders. Overall, 61% of all K-6 students opt into the hybrid model, while 39% chose to stay in remote learning. So again, I can't emphasize enough about the fact that we're providing choice for those parents that would like their children in school or to remain outside of school. Next slide, please. That would be hybrid versus remote learning.
If we are seeing a delay, I am presenting that slide, but we're not seeing it go live just yet. So we're going to be 20 seconds behind.
Okay. And so here are the numbers by school. So 73% of K-6 students at 91 chose hybrid learning, for example, while Lee and Trost had the most students who decided to stick with remote learning at 41% and 48% respectively. When I talk about hybrid versus remote learning with regard to historically underserved students in the next slide group, what you'll see is that it really does demonstrate that many of our historically underserved students opted out of in-person learning at a much higher rate. And so to the point about making sure that we're providing as much support to those students who are at home across our district, we'll continue to look for more and more support to make sure that those students are definitely getting the same quality of education that anyone else in our district would receive. Next slide.
I have a question.
Sure.
Ever English language students.
Those are students that at any point in time have received English as a second language services, ELL services. You bet. Our average class sizes, you can see our hybrid cohorts. So that means on an A, you have two cohorts, an A and a B cohort. The average cohort size would be 12 for kindergarten, 14 for first grade, second, 15, etc. And then you can see the same average class sizes there for connected at home learning, and then also for COLA. So it's a nice balance of students in terms of the average class size. And so I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see that. So what's next? When we look at our March 9th, we have grades 4 through 6 beginning in the hybrid model. March 30th, grades 7 through 12 begin in a hybrid model. And then April, we will be early in April looking at evaluating the possible expansion of K-6 hybrid scheduling. And that's really in line with OD guidance around making sure that we can demonstrate that our kids can come back safely and that we don't see any increase in any transmission of COVID in our community. And so we're excited about that possibility that we'll be able to expand our K-6 schedule in April. I'm going to turn to Greg Dinza and Jennifer Turner to be able to give us a brief overview of where they are right now with regards to limited in-person instruction and their preparation for moving forward with a 7-12 plan.
Great. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and thank you for having me. Chairwoman Dilks, I think I'm going to try to share. Oh, thank you. You gave me permissions to share. Let me bring my screen up here. I've got just a few slides to share with you. Nope, that was the wrong button to push. Sorry about that. There we go. All right, so Canby High School is excited because we have been able to launch a number of different limited in-person instruction opportunities for our students. Before I dive into them really quickly, I just want to remind the board that we created these programs to help support our students that are currently in connected at-home learning. So the first thing we really rolled out wasn't a program to support our students, but it gave us a dry run with our youngest students, which are our child care students. We brought this program online on February 8th, and it has been running strong since, providing child care services for staff and community members. In response to the ice storm, we decided to open up an emergency tech and family support center. Initially, we started off providing services to needy high school students, and then the following week, we extended that to include students from all over the district. Those services were available February 19th through 26th. And then we started really bringing online on March 1st some of the other supports available to our general student population. The first two were the CEAP, or the Credit Earning Assurance Plan students. These are students who had incomplete work from third trimester last year, and some of our seniors who need some additional support getting all the credits they need to be ready for graduation. Also on March 1st, we rolled out SPED support for those students in need. Next we have coming is freshman support, which will start next Monday on March 8th. Finally, I just want to detail a few of the other LIPI options that we are looking to develop. We have been working with the district to come up with a migrant ELL support program. We are going to expand some of our SPED services to include some more of the specialized programs. We are hoping to open up our Career and Technical Education Lab, or our maker space, which is under development, make that available for students in the afternoon and evening hours. And then we're also looking at a number of ways to help augment our performing arts classes with additional instruction after hours. I'd like to just take a quick moment to take a look at the different options that we have available for our students for third trimester. Of course, students will be able to do the Canby Online program. They will still be able to engage remotely through comprehensive distance learning or connected at-home learning. But as Superintendent Goodall mentioned, we're really just going to focus in on that in-person instruction hybrid. You can see in parentheses, I said with CDL, these classes will be done in conjunction with those students who are still learning at home. So that model, I'm put up a quick graphic here. Oh, excuse me. The model is going to be based on a cohort where students will be divided by last names. They will attend every other day in a gold and blue schedule. To help you remember, think the B days are blue days, and the A days, for our scientists out there who know chemistry, AU represents gold, so that's where we get the gold from that. Classes will be in session Tuesday through Friday, and Mondays will remain the same with advisory first thing in the morning at 9 o'clock, and then students engaged in asynchronous or at-home learning on their own independently for the rest of the day. So this is what the model looks like. I'll just walk through it briefly on Tuesday to give you some idea. But before I do that, our biggest constraints, of course, were bus transportation and lunches. We chose to adopt a schedule that we saw Westland Wilsonville adopt, which was to run periods one after another and allow students an early release to get lunch. That helps us avoid a lot of the problems associated with trying to figure out how to do lunches for a large-scale population in a constrained space. Another thing that has really challenged us is the tradition at Canby High School of having an open campus. That creates a whole number of different challenges if we were to look at having lunch during the day. But as you could quickly take a look here, if we focus in on Tuesday, buses would drop off students approximately 9 a.m. They would run first through fourth period. each period about an hour long. There's about 10 minutes between classes, that is to facilitate cleaning of classroom spaces. And then, of course, movement through the building, which will be somewhat constrained because we will need to implement directional hallways to maintain proper distancing per COVID guidelines. At the end of the day, we'll come around 1:45, load buses, then they will be off to the middle schools to pick up the middle school students. For the remainder of the day, our staff will be engaged in office hours for students and management time, appropriate meetings for things like IEPs. That's it in a nutshell. I'll entertain any questions.
Thanks, Greg. Maybe we'll go to Jennifer first, and then if the board has questions for secondary, we'll do it that way, if that's okay.
All right. Good evening, board. Unlike Greg, I do not have a slideshow presentation, but I have lots to share with you. So this week on Monday, we started off with picture day for students. It was by appointment. We had about 122 come in between the hours of 11 and 7. It was exciting to see them. They came in with their masks, then took them off for their picture, and then exited out the door. And just the energy, having students in the school, it was so nice to see them. And we also started limited in person this week. It started yesterday. So between yesterday and today, we've served about 30 students. And then they will come next week also, and then a day the following week. And then we have also been planning for our return to school on March 30th. We did our webinar, community webinar last night. So students at Baker Prairie will arrive at 8:45 with school starting at 9. And our school day will run 9 to 2:20. They will have advisory through 6th period. We will be giving them breakfast if they'd like, and then they will have lunch. We will have students eating one wing at a time in the lunchroom, and we anticipate that will be about 60 students. So while 60 students are in the lunchroom, another hallway will be out at break. And they'll be at break either in one of the 2 gyms, perhaps in the library. And that'll be about 50 students. So we'll spread them out throughout the areas to make sure they're safe and safely distanced. The other half of the school, which is 2 wings, will be in class. So they'll be in 3rd period while the other groups are eating and having break. And then we'll flip that. And then after lunch, they'll have 4th, 5th, and 6th periods, and then they will get ready to go home, load buses, grab their meals for the next day for their at-home learning days. And I think one of the things that's for you to all know is that students, when they report to school, they'll be in the same classroom throughout their day, and teachers will rotate to them. They will have the opportunity to move for art, band, and music, as well as when they have PE. Their PE teacher will come into the room, take attendance, and then you take them outside or use the gyms, again, with groups of probably between 12 and 15 students. We are still finishing up with our enrollment numbers. We have about 95 families still left to turn in their information to us. And so we're really excited. And I'll entertain any questions, or both Greg and I.
Yeah, thank you, Greg and Jennifer. I know you guys have done so much work over the last few weeks with your staff and your teams, and obviously it's really appreciated. I don't know if the board wants to ask questions now, or do you want to wait till the end of the entire presentation? Certainly, up to you.
Questions now? Wait, Leanne. We have Larry to go, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I do have one question about the difference in the timing of the school day. Baker Prairie going until like 2:20 with lunch, and then the high school, I forget what time during the class day ended there. But prior to lunch, an extended day beyond where they don't have lunch. And Greg, is that primarily because of an open campus? I mean, is that the barrier to having a longer school day in the classroom?
Yeah, Rob, I think I heard your whole question. You're still coming in a little choppy for me, but if I can paraphrase it, your question was around the barriers around having a longer day and having a lunch in the middle of the day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. For us, I think it's really two parts. One, of course, is that open campus tradition. We have so many buildings. Frankly, it would be a bit of a challenge to police all our exits. I mean, we're supposed to keep the kids in a cohort that's not being exposed to people from the outside. So that is one problem. I think another big challenge is on any given day, we're going to have an during a lunchtime. We really don't have the space to do that throughout the building at that same time and supervise all those students at the same time.
Thanks, Greg. You cut out a little bit on our end, but I think I got the gist.
Okay. Yeah, one thing we are planning on doing that I didn't mention is we will have snack tables set up throughout the school. And with that extended transition time between classes, students will be able to grab a snack as they're moving through the building. And breakfast and lunch service will be available before and after school.
Part of it too, Rob, is a little bit of transportation because we have to coordinate making sure that the high school students are picked up. And then those same buses are going to go over and pick up the middle school students. So we have to have that little lag time there as well. We're hoping that's going to work. I know Jennifer's been a little bit concerned about that. We don't want high school students sitting on the bus at Baker Prairie for 20 minutes. So we're hopefully going to get that squared away.
Tom, you have a question?
Yep. So Jennifer, I think I heard right that you have 6 periods a day. Is that true?
It is. If you count advisory, that's 7.
Okay. And that's what you're doing now?
It is. It is. It's exactly what we're doing now. And one of the things I didn't share, so what we're going to do is once we get our CDL numbers, the students that are learning at home, that we're going to actually redo some of the schedules a little bit. So for example, I'm just going to use a house, for example. So if in house A, all the teachers teach 6 periods. So if in house A, the teacher teaches 6 periods and there's 30 students from that house that's doing learning from home, they're doing the comprehensive distance learning, that could be a period. So that teacher will teach 5 in-person periods and 1 CDL period. So they'll just, as they do with their rotation, if it's 5th period, they'll rotate and they'll go sit in a room and they'll Zoom with their CDL students. We're hoping that all students will have advisory every single day. So whether they're in person or at home, they'll just sign in and have their whole group of advisory together. They've built a great relationship with their teacher and as a whole class. And it gets the students up and ready for their day instead of on their at-home learning days thinking they can sleep in a little longer or not get up. We're really trying to sort of set that bridge for coming back to school and getting ready for the coming back next year and getting them back in the routine of getting up, getting dressed, being ready for school. Did that answer your question, Tom?
That helps. I do have one more question for either of you or both of you. So what I'll call the at-home off days, so they're not at school, what is the expectation? Will they have access to teachers on those days? I'm assuming they'll be doing some kind of homework. And is there any thought about having the ability to connect with the classroom on those days?
Yeah.
So I can speak. So for Baker Prairie, we talked about actually teachers teaching, whether it's concurrent classes or in-person CDL. So they're teaching their kids in class, and then also teaching kids on Zoom. And for right now, we are going with the CDL period instead of that. And so what students will be doing on their at-home learning days is teachers will have either created videos, like I know our math teachers are working on giving them math instruction at their level because we cohorted, our kids are in cohorted classes. They're not in a ability level group. So in any class, it's a mix of students from high, middle to low. And we have to maintain that cohort. But we also want to keep students where they're at in their learning, whether they need extra help or they're at grade level or they need advanced work. And so teachers will be doing that on that at-home learning day.
Tom,
clarify that. So when they're at home, will they have access to teachers for questions and
they
like
will,
at the
yeah,
office time or anything?
Well, teachers, they will in the morning at their, perhaps if teachers open up part of their offer to do it during their prep period, but teachers are teaching. Teachers are teaching Monday or Thursday, Tuesday through Friday, all day long. They don't have an open period to be open for students on their at-home learning day.
But they do have office hours at the end of the day, is that right?
They do, yeah.
And that would be an opportunity?
Yes, yeah. And yes, it will be. Good question. Sorry, Greg.
No, that's all right, Tom. It applies the same at the high school. We will have office hours at the end of the day for students to engage with teachers. We'll also have our tutor centers open. The way we're looking at high school instruction is really two different models, and Jennifer's alluded to them. One is the concurrent model where the teacher would be teaching to their CDL students and to their class at the same time. I think that's going to be favored by most of our teaching staff. Some may do the synchronous, asynchronous mix. It's really going to be dependent on what's most conducive for learning as a teacher chooses in that classroom. But, getting to the heart of your question, the last hour and a half of the day will be office hours for kids to engage either, primarily in a Zoom environment.
Greg, if I heard you right, each teacher will have a different setup. So some of them will teach via Zoom to both cohorts throughout the day. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, they could break it down. It's kind of interesting. If you think about it, Tom, the CDL class or the at-home class is happening and the teacher's teaching to it just like I'm presenting to you now, but then I would also have a group of students in front of me and I might say, okay, students, I want you to work on this, read this article. The kids at home would be reading it as I would walk around and help kids in the classroom. That would be that concurrent model. And that's, I think, primarily where most of our staff will go, but we're making both models available to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions at this point? Stephanie, do you have questions? I'm going to try to check in on occasion just to make sure I don't miss you. Chip, do you want to?
Yeah. So again, thanks, Jennifer and Greg, for your hard work, and thank all your staff. And we're obviously excited about getting our secondary students back into the building as well. I'm going to introduce now Larry Burrich, our facilities director, to talk a little bit about the protocols that we put in place for cleaning the buildings.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good to see everyone. So, we had kind of had early on, and I don't know what order your slide says because I don't see it, but I'll just rattle it off and keep you on a good timeline. We were with the direction of the leadership team, we had jumped on early ordering of PPE and chemicals, even though things were back ordered. We had built up at least a 3-month surplus, so we were ready to go at any moment. And then as we continued to see some back orders come in and everything, so we felt really good about where we're at, where chemicals were. We had already with Michelle's work had reviewed or putting together COVID practices, procedures, risk protocol, social distancing practices, which the staff has already been doing this all along. Felt as we finally got together on when the timeline is going to be to return, the biggest piece was scheduling and coverage. So, we went first, all custodial staff, received thorough training and retraining of proper steps and procedures for all cleaning and disinfecting and how to operate electrostatic sprayers and simply, again, the differences between cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and sterilizing. And what times are to do that. We created a new schedule where we developed and implemented that provide overlapping shifts to provide additional stronger coverage, preparing for the return of everyone, and now starting with just the K-3. We took the maintenance staff have all been trained and assigned to a specific school or area to be utilized in a backup role to assist the custodial staff and to provide coverage during absences. After the first few days, we kind of realized that it may look like a little much right now, but we're preparing. The thought process when introducing an operational plan for a situation that is new to everybody is that it's easier to scale back than it is to rev up, especially if you start falling behind or create an overwhelming situation. So, we, as I said earlier, we had jumped on the ordering of equipment and supplies, plexiglass, all those things. We got classes ready. We had occupancy studies done. So it all came down really to the coverage and what can we meet and how can we do that. So we feel pretty good about that. We have filled 3 positions. 2 had started, and I think 1 starts next week. So we are back to pretty much full staff, and then utilizing the maintenance staff again, as I say, as backups for absences and such. I think we're in pretty good shape. As junior high comes back, or I guess first 4 to 6 come back, then junior high, then the high school, we'll have to tweak again with staff and where they're needed and how we can get the coverage. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, Trip.
Thanks, Larry. Are there questions?
I don't have a question for Larry, but just a general question about kind of next steps. And I also want to say I appreciate all of the planning and coordination that has gone into maintaining both options for students and families. Autumn's been good enough to continue to send the Clackamas County cases per 1,000 information, and it's trending incredibly down. It's very conceivable to see that it would be cases per 100,000 green, within weeks. And I think at that point, there's going to be a lot of questions as to why we don't have everyone back in school full time. I know there are issues like with around that 35 square foot rule that I don't think are widely understood by the community, and other issues that may be preventing that as we understand them now.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation at the ODE level or at the state level around altering that 35 square foot rule so that we could get more kids in the classroom without doubling the teacher size and coming up with twice the square footage to have students at full time?
What you're talking about right now is the biggest barrier that we have, and that's that 35 square foot distancing. And so again, we're compelled to follow the guidelines to make sure that, we're not contributing to an increase in COVID cases. Our hope is that as schools continue to demonstrate that we can safely put our kids back into school, that we're going to see those guidelines potentially relax. And certainly, superintendents and other advocates are working with OD, and I know they're working hard there to try and determine what the next step is with the guidelines. When you look at the guidelines, Rob, when they first were written, they've gone through a number of iterations, and each week you go and to OD's website and they have new information, or they tweak the guidance a little bit. But that's the one major obstacle, this distancing, from allowing us to bring more kids back into the building at one time. And so, we're again, I feel strongly that we're doing the very best we can given the directives that we've been given, and we'll continue to do what we can within that guidance. And I'm sure those conversations are happening right now with the governor and the department.
Mike,
yeah,
and can I just make sure everyone lean really close to the microphone, especially with the masks? It is tough to hear, so we want to make sure that.
Trip, at ODE has the 35-foot guideline.
Yeah.
Okay. And where did they get that guide? Through CDC?
I'm assuming it's CDC plus it's I'm sure the Oregon Health Authority has a lot to do with it as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. The last slide that we wanted to put up, and it's just really a big thank you again to Larry and his facilities and maintenance team. While that's not on this next slide, I will say with the ice storm, it was really incredible to see how his team, and when I say team, Larry is one of those directors that goes shoulder to shoulder with his employees. He's out there working right alongside them, and the amount of debris that they've cleared on our building, on our property, has just been amazing. And I don't know if you had a chance to see the pile of debris that we had at Ackerman. The city called me, right during the ice storm and just asked if there was any place that they could put debris. And I told them that I thought Ackerman, that parking lot gave really good access for people to come in and come out. And so that was remarkable. But the number that I wanted you to hear is that our facilities services team, Zara Khan is our director of food and nutrition. We've served 238,820 meals since this COVID has started. That's like an extraordinary number when you think about that we have continued throughout all of the crisis, whether it's the pandemic, the wildfire, the ice storm. Our bus company, STA, Zara and her crew have just done really an incredible job. And so I really want to make sure that again, they are, thanked for the work that they've done, because without that, we know that our kids really need and families need that additional support. So thank you.
Thanks, Trip. Are there other questions, comments? The end of all of that?
I guess I would just add a thank you. I know it was a big week of first going back to school, as Trip alluded. So I know that was a lot for staff and parents and the community. So I just wanted to extend my thanks on that. And also, as Trip alluded to, just all the behind the scenes, the facilities, the nutrition. I know that's a lot of work, and also for our middle and high school for gearing up for our older kids. So appreciate the work that goes into that as we kind of try to navigate this, provide options for people that's best for their kids, and keep pushing through. Like Rob said, I think we are seeing kind of a hopeful light at the end of the tunnel here with our numbers trending down. So hopefully we can continue to provide more options for people that will help their students through this time. So.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I feel like from the very beginning, my attempts to express gratitude have been persistent but woefully inadequate, because it's, I think the thing I hear the most from people is that they've never worked like this in their entire lives. I mean, it's just such a different, it's like that for everyone, but especially I think in this space. And so I just want to reiterate the gratitude. Someday we will look back and have quite the list of stories to tell with our fires and our ice storm and everything else on top. But just again, want to reiterate the gratitude. So I'm watching the time, and we're definitely not going to get through all of this by 8:30. So what we're going to do, just so everyone knows, is we're going to recess the meeting at 8:30, have our executive session, and then come back in to finish whatever is left on the agenda. Because I don't want to force people. We're just not going to get through this by 8:30. So wanted to just give that update. So item 5.2, health protocols.
Good evening, board. I hope you all can hear me. And if we could let Diane in, that would be great, because she's our main presenter this evening. There she is. Hi, Diane. I just want to first do a shout out to all of our nurses across the district. And Diane is our nurse lead, and she's and her team have just done a phenomenal job in the middle of a pandemic of such proportions that we in our lifetime have never seen. So I just want to thank Diane and Kane and Ruth for all of their hard work. And we I am going to share my screen, hopefully. And Diane's going to walk us through a lot of what you've already heard in terms of some of the protocols that we're following. But also, most importantly, I think we're going to focus on what happens. We're going to go over our exclusion summary guidance in the event that a staff member or a student presents with symptoms or tests positive for COVID, and what we'll do at that point. Because I know in listening to a number of our school meetings with our parents, that's been a point that folks wanted clarification for. So Diane's going to lead us through that, and I'm going to be quiet now and hopefully share my screen.
Okay, so we have many protocols in place to help keep our students and staff safe. And we follow the guidance of Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority, who have written guidelines, and then we have followed and developed our protocols all based on their guidelines. So we have different policies in place that we've practiced and we've worked on, and they're very clear, and we're doing all of this to prevent the risk of students and staff becoming ill, and we're trying to protect our students, staff, and our community this way. So some of the things that we're doing are we're working together with our parents and asking that you do a thorough health check of your students in the morning to make sure they're not feeling ill. And if they are ill, they need to stay home. And so that's something that's very important, and we're relying on you. We have, I won't read all the questions here, but they're very specific questions. And every staff member answers questions every day before they enter a building, before they can enter the building, to make sure they're feeling well as well. So the first line of defense for screening is our parents, and we're relying on you. And then the second would be the bus drivers. And the bus drivers just do a visual screen. They're checking for, if a student has chills, if a student has shortness of breath or a very significant cough, really pale skin. And they would then confidentially let us know at school when the student gets there. And then if a student isn't well when they get to school, then we'll have a special care room where they get some individual attention. We give them an extra look and make sure they're feeling okay. So these are the things we screen them for visually. And another place we screen them is at the front door. And it's kind of nice to see at the schools because it's been a way for the students to be individually greeted when they get to school. They get a little squirt of hand sanitizer to get their hands clean, and people check in with them and welcome them to school, and they get to greet the staff right at the door. And then a third place they're screened is in the classroom. And when they walk in the door, they greet their teacher. Their teacher knows them best. And they do another visual screen just to make sure they look like they're feeling okay that day. So if a student doesn't feel well, or they seem like they have symptoms, or if they become ill during the day, we have each school has a care room. And ODE and OHA have required that our care room is separate than our health room. And so our care room's a place that, since we have the welcome edition of health assistants this year, we have health assistants in our care rooms, and they can stay with the student. They can do an extra assessment. If the student is ill and really does need to go home, we're relying on parents to come pick them up within 30 minutes so they're not at school feeling sick. And so that's what we have, our care rooms for that. And then we have our health rooms for students that have medication at school, or they need to take care of themselves in the health room and are not contagious. So we have definite separate areas for students. So I know parents are concerned that if we have a case of COVID and we are doing all we can, our principals have spent so much time with one-way hallways and building cohorts, and all of this helps with our mask wearing and our hand washing and following all our protocols and trying to keep each other safe. So if we do have a positive case of COVID, we work very closely with our health department. And that's why we have our cohorts, because we want to keep our students in a smaller cohort so they aren't exposed to as many people when they're at school. And so if there is a case of COVID, we will communicate with the health department. We will check and see the contact that the different cohorts have with each other and work with the health department to make a decision about what needs to be done. You're probably aware of this. If someone has COVID-19, you stay home and isolate. And if you're exposed to someone with COVID-19, that's when you quarantine. And then the health department will work with us on how many days somebody isolates, which is generally 10 days, and then how many days somebody quarantines.
Thank you, Diane. Are there any questions?
Questions from the board? I can tell you, I'm glad I'm not in charge of any of this. It's a lot. All right, anything else on that item? Okay, item 5.3, sports and activities update. Ben.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Let me see if I can share my screen as well. I can. Good. There it is. All right. Can you see my presentation?
We can see that you're screen sharing, but we can't see.
Got it. I'm going to try that again. Something weird happened.
I was trying to squint and see what the word said, but
I have a feeling it was on the wrong screen. Give me a moment. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
All right. Is that better now?
Yep. You are good.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Hopefully everyone was able to tune in last night to watch our volleyball team do it again, come from back down from 2 sets yet again, and beat Tualatin in our opening game. Tonight I plan on updating on season 2, which are typically your fall sports, and going over live streaming information, discussing our limitations on related to competitions, and our performing arts guidance. We're currently in season 2. Our practice began February 22nd, and our first competitions were yesterday for both boys soccer, cross country, and volleyball. It was our first competitions in more than a year, and they were all hosted at Canby High School, which caused some big challenges, but we rose to the occasion. For season 2 sports, soccer and cross country are allowed under all metrics released by the Governor and Oregon Health Authority. Volleyball, however, is allowed under all except for extreme risk, which would prohibit indoor sports. Football is allowed if the high school offers limited in-person instruction, or LIPI, and has a goal to be in hybrid during the school year, and has applied to have rapid testing available under certain conditions. In the fall, we took advantage of an offer from the NFHS network that allowed us to install pick-slot cameras in our stadium and main gym with an installation fee. The cameras retail for $5,000, and each one are fully automated and require no person to operate. They follow the play using artificial intelligence. Typically, we played games in the smaller gym and also on the grass fields. Because of the limited ability to offer spectators, which I'll go over in a little bit, we moved all soccer, volleyball, and football games to the main gym and stadium. This allows students, parents, and anyone to be able to see each of those for competitions. Unfortunately, competitions like cross country aren't easy to stream, and at this time, we're not broadcasting those events. As a league, we looked into purchasing a league pass so everyone in our league would be able to watch for free. And we found out only a few weeks ago that we could purchase the ability to allow us to stream all of our home competitions for free. We made that purchase and found some sponsors to cover those costs. You'll see the logos at the top left corner of each stream who has sponsored that event. Lastly, we're investigating options for sports like baseball and softball that spring, which don't play in the main gym or stadium. We've already talked to those coaches about ideas like using a GoPro and a hotspot as a possible way to stream it, but we'll dive in deeper possibilities as it gets closer. We've been getting a lot of questions lately about spectators events. To help explain the challenges, I'd like to show the facilities limitations for each event depending on the risk level put forth by the Oregon Health Authority. Right now, we're in moderate risk, and our capacity limitation for outdoor events is 150, and our main gym can hold 100. I've broken down each down in capacity limit, coaches, and athletes involved in the competition, event management that includes officials and personnel necessary to make the event happen, and any leftover group like cheer, dance, band, and spectators. As you can see, this poses a lot of challenges. Football is the most challenging sport. Each team size varies by school, and schools in the Three Rivers League are capping their size at 65, and even at that number, telling some coaches and athletes they can't come to the game. These are rostered athletes that could play, not ones that are just being pulled up to watch. Some schools you hear are offering spectators at football, but most are the ones with smaller football teams and smaller schools. You can imagine those that play in less than 11-man football could even offer up to 100 fans to come. Soccer and volleyball have similar challenges, and one is that the games are back-to-back. The or numbers you see at the start are the start for the max of one competition versus having all teams play at one time. For example, often the JV2 volleyball team would stay to watch the varsity game, but that would count against our capacity numbers. We can choose not to allow them, but if they're a visiting team, we need to choose an alternative location to put those student athletes until they're picked up. Cross country poses a total different set of challenges and also head scratching. Each meet can host many different numbers depending on how it's arranged and how many teams are in attendance. It's also extremely challenging to police. The guidance from the Oregon Health Authority says that if a spectator is in their car, they do not count against your numbers. If they're out of their car and congregating at the fence, they count against your capacity numbers. Yesterday, we had our SRO and campus security reminding people to stay in their cars, as we're held liable for each event we host. We're required to follow the guidelines. You can see the challenges that these events present. The head scratching part can be shown by the event map from yesterday. You'll notice the cross-country meet covers 2 baseball fields, 2 softball fields, a soccer field, and a football field. If you ran each one of those events separately with an individual entrances and exits, as well as parking and restrooms, you could have 900 people on campus because it's one cross-country, but since it's one cross-country meet, we can only have 150. Similarly, if you're in a lower risk county, you can have up to 300 people in a stadium as the maximum outdoor capacity is 300. But if your gym capacity is set at 50%, some gyms could hold up to 500 people. I imagine as we get some examples of these discrepancies, the guidance from the Oregon Health Authority will be updated accordingly. If we move to high risk, football is capped at 120 and spectators are not allowed, and all other outdoor events are capped at 75. Indoor events are capped at 50 in our main gym. You'll notice how much this changes what's left for anyone other than coaches and event management. I chose not to include information on low risk because our current COVID numbers are really trending toward that really fine line between moderate and high risk for this 2-week block. The movement numbers will be released on Tuesday that will tell us where we'll be March 12th to 26th. Hopefully we can keep the numbers down under 30 during the next 4 days so we can stay in at least moderate risk and keep doing what we're doing. Also, we don't know what any changing guidance will impact our plans. Over the past week, we've been hearing a lot of rumors going around increasing facilities capacities. We obviously don't act on them, but we do monitor them in case they come true. Our league athletic directors have changed our monthly meetings to almost daily as we've ramped up for competitions. We want to be on the same page, and none of us want to be caught unprepared. This slide lists some of the challenges if we move to extreme risk. Currently, there are 5 counties in Oregon here. If we get there, we would not be able to allow to play indoor volleyball or any indoor sports. Football doesn't change between high and extreme, but soccer and cross country would change. You wouldn't see much of a change with soccer, but with cross country, the meet would look very different. Based on our interpretation of the metrics, We take on the most restrictive metrics of our opponent or Canby. For example, yesterday we played Gresham boys soccer, which resides in Multnomah County, which is right now a high county. As such, our max capacity for that soccer game was 75. We play Tigard a week later, which is in Washington County, and the max capacity will then be 150. This leads to a whole lot of confusion to many involved, and we look to clear that up as much as possible. At this time, there are no plans being discussed to allow spectators from visiting teams to come to our events. Each home school is looking to take care of its own community at each competition. As I mentioned earlier, a big challenge is the event itself. Teams have maximum rosters, but sometimes they don't use that maximum, so we have some extra left over. We're required to frequently sanitize touched equipment. This includes any scores table, chair, or anything that someone has touched, including in volleyball, the gym floor. For volleyball, if anyone other than the player on the court touches the ball, it must be sanitized. We have parents volunteering and wiping down the balls before it gets put back in play. Took a bit of getting used to, but the ref did a good job yelling, "Don't touch the ball," enough times that we all understood the new rules yesterday. With regards to prioritizing the spots left that I mentioned previously, this is an area that I've been addressing since August. All of our events, we need to put our students first. We start with the competing athletes and make sure we have everyone able to compete be there. When we get a challenge, we then get to a challenging question that's been asked for a football game this Saturday. Senior parents or students like cheer, dance, or band. Currently, we're putting our students first. Our cheerleading team has been invited to cheer at the game on Saturday. They will count against our capacity limits for that game and be able to be in our stadium. We made this decision because they are our students, missing out on what students want to do. They're kids. When we have appropriate band guidance that I'll discuss on the next slide, we want to be able to invite them to the games when we can. For our senior football parents, and based on the interpretation of the guidance, we're able to use a separate facility for them to watch the game Saturday, which is our weight room and outside hallway. This is similar to our press box, which is an enclosed facility where no one will interact with the players or coaches downstairs, and according to recent information put forth by the OSAA and Oregon Health Authority, does not count against our capacity limitations. We'll even put the stream on the TVs, which is 30 seconds behind, so they can watch instant replay in those same areas. Hopefully you can appreciate the challenges and effort that has gone in to allow every option possible to watch our students compete. Also, looking forward, we're planning on allowing 2 spectators per athlete in volleyball and soccer, as long as we're in moderate risk. Each student will get 2 tickets laminated that they can give who they want to watch them play. They'll check in at the door, and we'll ensure that only 2 spectators have showed up for each rostered athlete to make sure we're under our capacity limitations. As we go forward with our competition, we know there's only one thing that's guaranteed: change. We've been getting a lot of questions about events that are 2 weeks from now. It's tiring, but important that we only plan 1 week at a time for now. I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding as we wade through a challenging but fun season. I can honestly tell you that out of all of our extracurricular activities, our performing arts students who are the ones that can be truly frustrated. They've watched sports practice for 9 months and haven't been able to practice or perform together. While it's unfair, it's due to the aerosol nature of COVID-19, and their events pose the most risk to become a potential superspreader event. We need to proceed cautiously and deliberately with performing arts. ODE, Oregon Department of Education, knows this and has updated guidance only for on-site and hybrid. I go every week to the Ready Schools Safe Learners office hours on Monday afternoon and ask if there's an update on limited in-person instruction, extracurricular, or co-curricular activities for our performing arts students. I think they're tired of me asking, but I also think it's important. It's so important for these kids. I've told it may be out today, tomorrow, or early next week. Even with this new guidance, we'll follow the recommendations for the National Federation of High Schools aerosol study that recommends practicing in an area for 30 minutes at a time and then allowing for air exchanges. We have both our band and Catalina standing by, ready to go, as well as our drama program. I know they want them to start. I know they want to start, and we want them to. So I hope the guidance comes very, very soon. Any questions?
I have a question, Ben. Thanks for presenting that. I hadn't realized some of the capacity issues, but I'm curious, and it could be that it's incorrect, but I've understood that West Lynn, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego have opened for limited spectators. and it doesn't appear, at least for outdoor sports, and it doesn't appear as though their capacity is materially different than ours. Do you know anything about that, or what might be different there that allows them to do that when we don't have that opportunity?
We're actually going to be following the exact same model they're using, and that is for soccer and volleyball only, they're allowing 2 spectators in. For football, they're not allowing any spectators of any kind, and I don't believe Westland's hosting any cross-country events.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mike?
Ben, what about club sports this year?
Are you talking about lacrosse, rugby, and other sports like that?
Correct.
Lacrosse, I met with the board about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and Jake McDonald as well, and we're talking about any options we can. Lacrosse is considered an outdoor contact sport, much like rugby, so it follows the exact same guidelines as football. When we submitted our plan, I included them on our plan, so we'll look to follow very similar guidelines with them. Trying to think of any other club sports that might be outdoor or indoor activities right now, but those are the main ones I was thinking of.
And I also appreciate you dogging the fine arts, the band, Catalinas, with those kids.
Even though I never was one, I think I have just this special soft place in my heart because those kids, I think that for right reason and historically, they've often been pushed aside, and we got to fight for them.
Thank you.
They care just as much, if not as more than even other sports and activities places.
Tom?
Ben, I heard that the governor's office was considering changing capacity based off entrance and exits number of at the facility. Have you learned anything of that? I know you're learning different stuff every day. So
that was the rumors I was talking about. What it is, and again, these are things that get posted on Facebook and kind of get repeated over and over again. So you wonder if they become true or if they just kind of fall by the wayside. If they do change, we'll be ready to go. Our facility, especially football area, is excellent for outdoor areas. We could look at cordoning off and closing off part of our stands. We could look at ways that we could socially distance those spaces. I mean, we are talking about an outdoor facility that truly, and again, this is an interesting comment because the outdoor facility has to have 75, if it's covered, has to have 75% of the surface area on the square foot outside, and our stadium counts as that. So we could find ways to get people socially distanced in those areas if we're allowed to.
Thank you.
Other questions? Just checking in, Stephanie, or do you have anything? Just want to, you don't have to answer, but I just going to keep checking to make sure. Anything else? Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Item 5.4, 2020-2021 student ASB athletic and activity fees. Denise.
Well, good evening, board. Originally, when Ben and I started talking about this, we had hoped to have this brought to you prior to the first contest, but that all changed with the delayed board meeting and his teams having competitions last night. Originally, the communication between Ben and myself and what he communicated out with parents was of the athletes that the board would be considering waiving the fees. At that point in time, there was going to be no charges for them, but that we would come back to them and let them know if they were going to be required to have any pay-to-play fees to participate in any athletics this year. So I do want to apologize. I know there was an announcement that came out in a high school newsletter last week, and that wasn't our intention all along. This is a decision that the board needs to make. So that's why I'm bringing that to you tonight. So basically what this proposal is that we would be asking you to waive any of the district assessed fees. That would be ASB, athletic, and activities. The district does receive a portion of those fees back to the general fund that help offset the cost of our coaches and also some of our activity leaders. I did look back at the last few years just to give you a financial recap of the monies that we did bring in for those. That includes both the pay to play and also any gate receipts. So I looked at 17-18 and 18-19, and that was around $165,000.
That does include middle school and high school sports and activities. Last year, it was $135,000. If you remember, we didn't get to have any spring sports, so that's the reason why that number was down last year. And this year, as you know, we're going to have truncated seasons for any of these activities that are happening, which will include a reduction in our transportation expenses. We'll be paying out less to our officials, and also supervision at games or having people there to take money for the tickets, because as Ben has stated, we'll have less people that will be attending those games. So Ben's done a great job of keeping in contact with other schools around the area to see what they're doing. As far as, are they waiving fees? Are they reducing fees? What are they doing? I think the last time I looked at the spreadsheet, it was about 2/3 of the schools were waiving the fees altogether. Some of them were making reductions to what they were going to charge the students. So depending on what your decision is tonight, we will make sure that we communicate any of that out to the families in the community to let them know what will be expected of them. And if there are students, some students have already paid for their ASB card fees, or for, I don't know if there's any pay to play out there, but we would make sure that for at least the seniors, that those monies would be reimbursed to them at the end of the year after they've turned in all their technology, books, and the such. For any of the other students, we would just put those monies on their account at the high school. If there is a family that needs those monies refunded, we'd be happy to do that for them. But that would kind of be the steps we would take if you did, in fact, make a decision to waive those fees for the year. We just have felt that this has been a hard year for a lot of our families, and would just be a way to help them get through the financial hardships they may be facing. So I don't know if you had any questions for myself, and I asked Ben to just stay on if you had any questions for him also.
Mike?
I appreciate you bringing this to the board to allow us to waive the fee. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That sounds like a pre-motion.
Yes.
Does anyone have questions or comments before we get to that point? All right. Someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to waive the student ASB and athletic and activity fees for the 2021 school year.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to waive student ASB athletic and activity fees for the 2020-2021 school year. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Kamala, will you please call the roll? Stephanie?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Angie? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.5, contract renewals and non-renewals. Michelle.
Good evening, board. So I am here, as I do every year, to ask that you approve, based on Oregon State statute, the renewal and extension of our licensed staff. And also it includes non-renewal of our temporary staff. And you'll also be approving the non-licensed administrators and confidential supervisory staff. There are resolutions in your packet, and I will take any questions.
Questions from the board? All right, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the 2020-2021 contract renewals, non-renewals as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the 2020-2021 contract renewals and non-renewals as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Kamala, will you please call the roll? Stephanie?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and Angie.
Aye. Motion carries. I think I did the reverse of jinxing ourselves by saying we were going to not make our timing. We're getting close. Item 5.6, inter-district transfers. Trip.
Well, in the spirit of brevity, I think you all have received this before. There are some board members that are new to this, but we are by law given the opportunity to allow students to transfer into our district, and we can release students outside of our district. Each year we have to come in spring to the school board to present a recommendation. The recommendation this year is that we will accept transfer applications for existing families only. Students currently enrolled, siblings of non-resident students currently enrolled, families who present a hardship case. We are asking to open 4 kindergarten transfer slots for Trost Elementary, and then the district will approve all release requests for transfer out of the district to another district for the 2021 or the 2021-22 school year, as has been our past practice. And many of the districts in the area have gone through such, so many students coming in and out of the district. We're really trying to all be good neighbors this year and not open up huge numbers of slots. Some have closed it down completely. We think it's fair, to make sure that Trost has the 4 slots that Angie's recommended. Thank you.
Questions from the board?
I do have a clarifying question. So Trip, the Trost 4 is for students outside the district?
Yeah.
Openings, that's the only 4.
Other questions?
So all transfer out requests are allowed. But we make a transfer in. That's similar to what other districts are doing.
Can you say a little louder?
That's similar to what other districts are doing at this point in time, allowing all transfer out. But
Cam has done some significant research on it, and I think that's pretty consistent. Right?
Other questions? This does require a vote, so if someone would please make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the inter-district transfer openings and releases for 2020-2022 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the inter-district transfer openings and releases for 2020-2022 as presented. 21, I don't know. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Emma, will you please call the roll?
Stephanie? She say aye. Stephanie?
Yeah, she nodded her head. Yeah.
Okay. Dawn?
After that.
Aye. Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, item 5.7, financial and special funds report, enrollment update. Denise.
Okay, we'll sneak in here in the last few minutes. So what I have presented for you tonight is our report for the month ending at the end of January. Next month, you will see on our construction excise tax, we did receive monies for the second quarter that came in February. Those were a little bit more than $192,000, so it was a good amount of money that the district received in on those funds. Now switching over to the financial report, I did note at the top I had the wrong date up there. It is actually the January report. We did receive a state school fund estimate and update on March 3rd, so that will be included in next month's report. We did receive also our common school fund payment in February. So the projected number that I have in there is what the amount that we are anticipating receiving for the year. That's on line 3. We're still waiting for the final amount that we'll be receiving from the ESD, they've been had some layoffs, and so we expect that number to possibly be higher, but I still haven't seen that other intermediate source line on number 11. And I will go back through then also, back up to line 6 for the co-curricular activities. I will reduce that amount down. We are anticipating about 100,000. So given the vote that you took tonight to waive those fees, that will go down to 0 for this year. And I don't have anything else as far as the expenditure side of things. We're still watching. We've realized savings in both our substitutes and transportation costs, but those will increase now that we are bringing more students in on our buses, and also taking kids out on athletic events. So we'll watch those numbers, but those have been significant savings that we've realized this year. And then just on the enrollment summary for this last month, we're up 8 students. We've got 8 students back. So next month, I'll make sure I know that Tripp kind of gave you a recap of how our students have chosen to come back in a hybrid, a COLA or CDL model. So we'll give you those numbers, any of them estimates that we also have for middle school and high school here in a couple weeks. We may not have the final numbers, but at least that'll kind of give you an idea of where our 7 through 12 students and families have chose to continue their education for the rest of this year. I don't know if anyone had any questions about any of that information.
Denise, is the Federal CARES Act fund included anywhere in here?
No, it's not. So our second allocation that we received was for about $2.3 million. So those monies are not included in here, and we have till, I believe it's September of 2023 to spend those dollars. So that's some monies that district has. We've utilized them, like Michelle talked earlier about the floater teachers that we have. We're utilizing them for those, any PPE equipment or other needs that we have to get schools up and running. So those are not included in here. It's in a separate grant fund.
The only restrictions are used by 23. Sorry.
Well, there is restrictions. I could send the board like a summary of what those could be used for, just so you guys have an idea of those funding stipulations. So I'd be happy to send that to Camel, and she could send that out to you so you have that information.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think you're good, Denise, on that one.
I do have one more question on enrollment. Tripp, obviously numbers are significantly down with the hopes of returning to a more normal in the fall. Have we thought about doing something sometime in the next few months about trying to learn about people's intentions about comeback? I know that'll be very difficult, but I got to believe we have to for budget purposes because of significant drop.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think in line with what we've done historically is to be really conservative in these moments. So we're not trying to anticipate that everybody's going to come back. So we're trying to find that middle number, but I'm going to work with Autumn to try and figure out a way to reach out to every family. And it's really almost like a welcome back to Canby kind of approach, a campaign to get them to understand that things are still moving forward and hopefully they'll come back. We've heard from quite a few that said, yeah, they intend to come back when things get back to normal. But I do think some kind of a campaign time, inviting people back to people is critical.
Denise, am I right with my math? Is that about $3.5 million our drop in attendance if we had to use the current number?
That's pretty close. Yeah. And we're waiting. We did receive our first estimate from the state, but it's based on the governor's first, the $9.1 billion budget. So it's pretty significant. So, and we were conservative, like Tripp said in our estimates, just doing, hopefully getting at least half of those kids back. So it's a lot to consider and figure out. And like you said, the more information we have as far as knowing how many kids are going to return, the easier it's going to be to do our budget, but nothing's definite. So.
This is something that ODE is well aware of, but I think nearly every district I know of is in the same place. And so they know there's going to have to be some kind of considerations made when they put this budget together.
Other questions? All right. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
So we are going to recess the public session. This time we are able, we think, to keep the public session open so people don't have to disconnect like has been the case in the past. We're going to have a separate meeting room, so to speak, for the executive session, and then we will return to open session once we are done. So we are recessed for 5 minutes.